Hi everyone, this is not the normal setting for Comedy Guy, but I'm in Tartu today. And first of all, I have to give a shout out to the Spark Hub here where we're filming, and also Contriber who run this space. Thank you guys for supporting us and letting us use this space here while we're in the lockdown. We appreciate that. So the reason I'm here today in Tartu is I'm talking to Kristina Birk Vellemaa. Kristina is a sexual health educator, let's say, and she's part of the Estonian Sexual Health Association. And I mean, I've got topics that I feel like I could talk to Kristina for days on, but the topic that I kind of wanted to get in today was porn addiction, particularly male porn addiction, but how does it affect women as well? That can be an interesting thing. It feels like it's this super pervasive thing in our society right now, but we're not talking about it. But I guarantee it's on your phone, especially if you're a guy. I guarantee you can load up Instagram right now, click the little magnifying glass, scroll a little bit, there's gonna be some boobs. There's gonna be probably almost the equivalent amount of boobs and skin and good times that I might have had when I was a teenager on one printed bit of paper that was in a Playboy. Now it's just instantly, no matter what you do to get away with it. And I wanted to talk more about this. So, hey, how you doing, Kristina?
I'm doing quite okay.
Yeah, okay.
Like everybody, this tremendous and terrific and horrific times.
How have you been as your job? Are you usually doing face-to-face consultancy, or how do you usually go about your job every day?
I'm usually doing face-to-face trainings. I'm not as much as a consultant as a trainer, and an educator. And the first weeks were tough because I'm used to train and I missed it. And then we discovered that, okay, let's go and Zoom a bit.
Okay.
And at this point we are out-zoomed.
So you had to learn how to use Zoom and had to learn how to adapt
using
to
Zoom
thing,
is okay, but I miss the audience in this room and the synergy and dialogues. Zooming is a bit different. And also for my voice, it's much tougher than usual trainings because I'm used to use my voice in a room. But when I have headphones on, I'm overusing my voice. So in the evenings, I'm quite quiet.
I think it's been an adjustment for all of us. That's interesting that you give most of your education as in a classroom, because for me, I'm a stand-up comedian, but my previous job was I was a IT trainer for about 10 years as well. So most of my job was going around giving training courses. Again, that being in front of a group of people, you can see how they react.
Yes, and as a trainer, I love the part of receiving. I don't like to give monologues and speak alone in the room, but I like their training parts. They are training me as well, not only me training them.
Okay. So what would be the typical topics that you're training people on, or areas?
Sexual development, media, pornography, gender stereotypes, gender roles, sexual violence. We talk about sexual violence and prevention of sexual violence a lot. And pornography is one part of that. Sex positivity and so on, all the topics that are about sexuality, because sexuality is such a broad term and wide term, and it's not only sex or intercourse or boobs or butts or penises, vaginas, vulvas, whatever. It's core being of a human being, and it's sometimes people don't understand that, but they are starting to speak up and open up. And in Estonia we haven't had a very long history of sex education and sexual education and free speech about sexuality. So it's an interesting era and interesting work, and very educating for myself as well.
What are some of the typical groups? Where are they coming from? Where are these groups of people coming from who are you typically speaking to?
Today I was training teachers, youth police officers, childcare specialists. Sometimes we train doctors, medical staff, usually and mainly teachers and social workers, people who are working with people. And last year we started to do trainings to grown-ups through organizations where they work, so that we can talk about safe sex, about using condom, because Estonia is quite high on HIV level, and there are different target groups that we work with, and with young people who are coming to trainings or to Zoom together with a whole bunch of classrooms. So
that's okay. It's really broad spectrum. Is there some? Do you see the generation gap between the older teacher and the younger teacher, or?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. It's as you might expect, or what do you think?
Of course, because older teachers don't have enough sexuality education themselves. They lived in a totally different world, totally different media room. But I don't want to say that all the older teachers are prude or they can't talk about it. No, it's not like that, because often we have very fierce teachers who are 60 years old and 65, some even 70, and they have such mature and at the same time interesting and fierce view on sexuality and sexual development and education. So. But I have to say that, yes, they are a bit more troubled in these topics than younger teachers.
Okay. I mean, I do see a point there, that if you're a teacher and if you're 60 and you're still teaching, you're probably tough. You've seen a few classes.
Yeah.
You've seen a few things. Maybe you're actually in it for the kids and not just hanging around waiting to die or something. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. It's interesting and a good thing that these. What is at the current time? What would you say is the standard level of sexual education in an Estonian school? Because for me, I'm 40. I went about 20 years ago in Australia. We got nothing. Just nothing. Not even, I don't know if it's a real thing or not, but no cucumber with the condom on. We didn't get that. We got maybe one awkward class with the male gym teacher and just us sniggering. Just no addressing of it. I mean, what's the average state now, do you think, in schools?
Well, a condom and a cucumber is better than nothing at all, but cucumber does not look like a penis, so it's not the best way to teach about sexual health. But I'm 41, and in Estonia, sexual education or sexuality education was added to curriculum at 1996.
Okay.
So the last year I was in high school, we got some sexuality education. But to talk about porn, our teacher, oh my God, well, she took us to a sex shop. We were 17. Some of us were 18, but we were minors. And she took us to sex shop and she showed us what kind of dresses or bras or knickers we have to wear to turn a man on. So shoot me. Yeah. And
so this was a only female class, was it, or was there boys?
No, only female, of course.
Only female.
I don't know what boys were talked about.
And was this right? Was this because maybe the curriculum was so new?
Yes, of
the
course.
teachers had no guidance on what to do, and they're like,
you cannot give people a toolbox and not to say what to do with it, or to say that build a wall, but you don't give them even a toolbox. So, of course, it's about that as well.
Because it's like every time I've been into a sex shop and you see all that gear, I'm like, this is not like, I would just rather something sexy from H&M. Like, I'd rather just go through that section with the teacher than go to the sex shops.
It's perverse.
Right. The weird,
Yeah.
Okay, that's...
And all the pornification started from that age already, but sex education in Estonia, I would say that it's quite good because we have sexuality education lessons in our curriculum all over the Estonia. Not very many countries do have that, and World Health Organization and UNFPA, they have preached Estonian sexuality education. We have been giving trainings in Kazakhstan, no Borat jokes, Moldova, Kyrgyzstan, all kind of stuns and these places, and we see that we have developed so far from where we came. But when you work with these kind of topics, and being a fierce feminist myself, of course I can see that, oh my God, again this word or that word or this approach or that approach, but we are good, we are quite good. The thing is that teachers, as you said, back then they didn't have any sexuality education. At this point many of them do, but it's very uneven. In some schools there are so fierce teachers, and when we go give trainings to these schools, we only give something extra, not the basic stuff, but some schools that invite us to give sexuality education classes, we can see that we have to start from A, B, and C, and it's quite sad because in Estonia you have you can reach to these materials and you have different trainings if you want to, but sometimes in schools human education and sexuality education among it's sometimes for teachers who don't have enough another classes, so that you have your hours. You have to take some of the lessons of maybe sexuality education, human education, and not often head teachers or headmasters understand that this is as much important as other stuff.
It's a specialty in its own right that people need to be educated on, not just you got nothing to do, go in there and teach them about this stuff.
But in big picture, Estonia is okay, but it does not mean that we don't have anywhere to go.
Of course. Is there any, I mean, you said some schools are there any, I mean, we don't talk bad about schools, but is there any like broad connections that you can see from a place or a town? Is there anything broad like saying like city is more educated than country? Is that roughly you would say, or are there any other sort of large factors that you've noticed?
You said it already, and it's quite sad to say. It's not, again, it's not always like that. Sometimes we go 200 kilometers from Tallinn, or just before they closed Saaremaa, me and my husband, we were in Orissaare. He's giving trainings as well. He is a lawyer and he's talking about sexual rights a lot. And we were in Saaremaa, in Orissaare. Oh, it was a lovely school, lovely atmosphere, great kids, great teacher that we were communicating with. And it does not mean that only Tallinn or Tartu or Pärnu, where I come from, are in good hands. But to say broader, yes, the further we go from centers, the sadder it is, but not knowing about condoms or safe sex or safe intercourse, but gender norms. Gender stereotypes.
It's difficult.
Yeah, it's quite sad.
Sure. Yeah, okay. What was your, you said you grew up in Pärnu. Okay, so how do you go on, what is the road that one goes to becoming in your position to being a sexual health educator? Was there a certain degree? I mean, is there any sort of way that one goes about this right now?
No, in Estonia you cannot have a degree. You can go to Finland and study, or to Sweden and study. In Estonia you can put together your own curriculum, but after high school I went to study youth work. Okay. And when I was a student, we had to go through practical part of our studies, and I chose the organization where I work at the moment. I have not been working there since. I have worked here and there and even managed a restaurant.
Okay.
But I always came back to youth work and young people and people working with young people. And that's my way in youth work, sexual education and sexuality education, and being a human rights and sexual rights activist and minority rights activist. It's kind of logical that I ended up where I am. And I love my work. I do it with passion, though it's sometimes it's dangerous, because when you live your work 24/7, you can lose yourself to the work. So you have to stop sometimes and get out of there.
Okay. Definitely, when working with people and helping people, when people always need help, there's. Are you doing any? Do you do any you don't do? You only do these training courses, not so much like individual counselings or something?
No,
like that?
I'm not an individual counsellor. I thought about it a while, but it's not in my nature to leave work where work is. I would burn out so fast, so it's not for me.
It's very healthy that you've managed to understand that about your work, and that there are still limits, and even if you love it, because I think it's maybe something we do suffer from a bit too much in Estonia. All of us, we're all working too much. I try to absolutely never work on the weekends where possible, which is hard when you work in the entertainment industry and there are shows on the weekends. But to carve out,
I've seen you in Pärnu on weekends, so.
Okay, yeah, you know that we're down there, and is there a show? Yeah, we'll go. Yeah, we'll be there. Where did you see a Comedy Estonia show? Where did you see that show?
I was in Pärnu. The place is right now called Alibi, but then it was Virre, yes, and it was the first time I laughed after my divorce. So thank you guys.
You're welcome.
Sander Reigus was on stage, and oh my god, my first laugh after that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, Pärnu is. It's such a tricky town for us because, during the winter, as you know, it's just dead. And there's venues that are trying to, make something of it. We're trying to get some people in. The venues are trying to make something in. And I really hope a lot of those places survive what's happening right now.
Because it was February and the place was stuffed with people. I mean, it's a small place, but it was stuffed.
We're very fortunate in that way that people want to come and they're enthusiastic for our shows. And, we're also a little bit trying to be picky about the venue. Like we could carve out a space in Virre, what is now, Alibi, to sort of make a stage, but not every, like for example, if you went over to something like, what's it up the end, Sweet Rosie? Is that the end at the end there? I mean, just lovely, not good food, nice beer, but just an inappropriate space for what we do. So I'm glad those guys are there. So yeah, Pärnu's coming up for us. We're doing more and more here, and I mean summer's coming now. As soon as we're allowed to do shows, I don't know. I have a feeling there's going to be some sort of outdoor show before the end of the month, but maybe some distance is kept outside. Something that we can police.
You can turn that to comedy, so.
Yeah. Something we can police, so maybe there's not so many people coming in, some sort of enclosed space. I get the feeling people are sick of it.
Yeah, they need it.
They need some relief.
Though for me, for a feminist, just laugh on these jokes. Sometimes I feel like a traitor. So it's quite tricky.
This is an interesting one. I mean, go on this, because it's something we at Comedy Estonia, we give a lot of thought to, which is we are what we are. Now, we have mostly male members. Now, we do have some up-and-coming female comedians. And the first thing we do believe is that it's important that you need to do the work, that you can't just put people into positions if they don't earn it or haven't worked there. So we understand that you can't just change the demographic overnight, that women comedians need to rise up and do that as well. And I believe that they are. We have a bunch of great women who are coming up. But then, because the question we kind of asked ourselves was a while ago, which was, how do you stop being a boys' club when you're a boys' club?
And how?
when on show, being as open as we can, trying to provide equality of opportunity, that everyone gets the same opportunity, and
it takes time. It does not change overnight. So,
but it's also a little bit difficult as well. I can see on the stage, I don't think there's a problem. On the stage, I think our female comedians are getting fantastic responses. We are starting to see that the pattern of negativity in the online YouTube comments, though, and I think that's rough, and that's something we're all trying to deal with as a group. Like this, I appreciate that it's tough. You probably have to have a little extra gusto to want to put your stuff out there. It's rough. But that's something maybe we can get to in our talk, because I have. I'm interested in that as well. That where did we get to with this online culture? I mean, right now, I think for us as comedians, as I assess it, I think the only choice we have is to ignore it and to train ourselves to not look at it. Because I agree, it's not a good situation, but this is not changing in the foreseeable short-term future of the careers that these people and young ladies want to have. But I think it not only, it's one thing you just go, don't look, very easier said than done. Not only, of course, you want to see what people have said about you, but also if we've all got, there's a bigger pandemic than COVID going around, and it's internet addiction. And if we've all got the internet, I think it's 10 times harder to not look at those YouTube comments if you've already got the internet addiction, which is I'm interested in scrolling, I'm interested in likes, I'm interested in the next notification that Facebook gives me.
Or if I don't read them myself, after I have written an article or given an interview, I don't read them. But then some friend or acquaintance comes and says, "Oh, look at that." I say, "I don't want to look at it." Okay, I will copy it to you. If I say I don't want to look at that, you don't copy it to me. I just want to distance myself from it. But it's not possible all the time. And I guess if you are a comedian and you're on stage, you are not on stage only because you want to give something out. You also want to know what your audience thinks about it, and not only the audience that is right next to your stage, but also
I think that's
a broader audience.
And I was trying to break that down with our comedians in a discussion we had last week that, if we all want to be Zen Buddhists about the whole thing, then you might say I don't look for external factors, that I look for the internal things that drive me, and the internal that I do this art for me. But we can't ignore, we're comedians. We want a bit of attention. There's got to be that level of attention seeking to make someone want to be a stand-up comedian. So to ignore that would be a little bit naive. I think for us, and I've been trying to get our comedians to think about that, it's where are you looking for that attention? And I think it's massively different whether you look for it from a live audience or whether you get it from online comments. And then even then, maybe you've got to break down your live audience, I don't know, be more considerate. Maybe Tallinn is a little bit different too. Or let's say even for me, let's say as a foreigner, if I start busting out all the anti-ECRA jokes, okay, maybe, you got some of those. I might be more considerate of that I might think one thing in Tallinn, but I might be more wary of my audience in Viljandi. Not to say I don't want to do it, but I might come at things from a different angle. So understanding that audience. Because you've certainly been taken your fair share of media in Estonia. And what's been your process of, it's not easy to just turn off and just go, don't read. Even if before your friends start doing that. How did you learn to deal with that those factors are out there and you've got to deal with it?
I call it fuck it credit. I have enough credit at my account, so I can just raise my hands and say, But I have not always been like this, and at this point I'm more like more an educator and a trainer than an activist. It will turn back, I guess, sometime, but at this point I'm a bit tired of being an activist. And one part of it was the negative feedback, and I'm not afraid of negative feedback, but maybe the emotions that you get and what is the most difficult thing is to stay polite. It takes a lot of energy if you have so many fucks to give.
Yeah.
And you have to be polite, and you understand that you are not arguing only with a certain person, but there are people looking you and the other person arguing on social media as well, and you are not able to change the other person's mind or the mind of the person who is arguing with you, but you can change the mind of a person who is looking what you are talking about, because maybe he or she has not made up his mind yet.
Okay.
And that is what helps me sometimes to put my voice a little bit down, but not always. But I started not to read comments when I understood that there's nothing new about them. Nothing new. There is nothing new to expect. People who agree with me, they agree with me. People who don't agree with me, who hate feminists, who hate sexual rights activists and who hate social democrats and so on, they will never agree with me, because if they are against my personality and against me personally. So there's no point of reading them. Absolutely no point. We are humans, and it's really interesting what other people think about us. But on one point you understand that it's the same all the time.
You have to, I mean, I guess, just as you were, I think we were talking before, or even in this conversation, that there's this lack of education about, if you're talking about porn, it was, okay, it's out there, it could possibly be a reasonable thing under certain circumstances, possibly, but there's not enough education, there's not enough processing to know how to deal with it. If we're taking, let's say, another addiction, alcohol. We even have a scientific measure, the blood alcohol limit, that can tell you how much is too much of something. So, but with that, we've got no education as a society about how to deal with porn, and we've got no education as a society how to treat and how to deal with being online right now. And I don't get it. I mean, I don't even like clicking dislike on a video. I don't even want to. Like, why would someone took the time to make a video? If I don't agree with it, move the fuck on. Why am I even taking my time to make a comment? But a lot of people do. And I'm very surprised. Not surprised, but it keeps opening my mind how many pissed off dudes there are out there. Like, wow, these dudes are annoyed.
How do you know they're all dudes?
Well, okay. I mean, I guess, yeah, if someone's going against a woman, I guess I just assume they are.
Usually are.
They usually are. Okay.
Usually are.
Usually are, all right. But it doesn't have to be.
No, of course it does not have to be. But about the porn addiction, the hardest part is that you actually don't have anything physical to be added to your blood or to your system. People don't often understand it. It's like gambling. Gambling
That's
addiction
a good analogy.
as well.
Yeah, okay.
Because you don't put anything in your veins or your lungs or your stomach, but you are addicted. And porn addiction, they say that it works in the same centers of your brain or the same spots in your brain as gambling addiction, for example. So
I hadn't thought about it with gambling addiction because I don't gamble, and I've never had the impulse to gamble. Because I started to think about So, I mean, sure, I'll sort of, I guess, introduce to the people why we're getting to this porn addiction topic, is because I feel, I'm someone who, ever since the internet could enable me to, so ramping up over the last 15 years, let's say, I do remember downloading some pictures of some women on a 56K modem and watching it come down line by line. And not understanding, all I know is a young guy is like, I want to look. And I would say over the last 15 years, every couple of days at least, that I've looked at some sort of erotic imagery to get where I need to go with myself, let's say. And it was in this time of the lockdown that we're more silent, we don't have as much work to do, as there was as much stimulus, particularly in the first days. And it just really occurred to me that I didn't look for a few days, being still, being mindful. Then I looked at some porn and I was like, damn, this has hit me. All of a sudden, without all the external influence of the world and my work, I was like, whoa, is this what it does? And I kind of, I don't know why that ticked me over the edge of going, oh shit, this is, something I think I instinctively already knew. And then it's like, why now? Why am I now getting vocal about it or wanting to talk about it more? And I thought it was such a, you're talking about the type of addiction, because if I drink beer gives me a buzz. I drink a beer, I get a buzz for an hour. Smoke some weed, maybe I get a buzz for a few hours. Porn is like 15 minutes and then I'm done. And then I'm like, seemed like when I started to think about it, I'm like, of all the addictions that I have, and I'm certainly no saint, and I would say struggle with the addictions in my life. To me, my addictions are like whack-a-mole. They're like the thing, and you go boonk, boonk, and then another one pops up and boonk, boonk, and you're just spending your whole life trying to beat them all down. And it seemed like a dumb addiction to have because it didn't give me anything beyond the 15 minutes. But gambling I hadn't considered, because I'm not a gambler. Because if I have a booze or a smoke, you can see it from me if I do that at lunchtime. But porn, and maybe even gambling, if I go away and gamble for 45 minutes or look at porn for 45 minutes, no one knows. It's not even like a real thing. Of course, you cannot put gambling and porn side by side, because gambling is it's a normal thing in society, and it's glamorous. Even if you look at Las Vegas and even Tallinn wanted to build a gambling island, some crazy politician was planning it, and but porn is something that we also consider dirty, and we are not really open about it. And we are, if it is on open daylight, it's not from the angle of human sexuality, but it's like from the angle of over-sexualization and over-pornification, and if we talk about, you say porn, and everybody thinks about porn stars, for example. But there are other, that we kind of touched on this in our pre-talk as well, that not only do we not know how to deal with this, we often don't have the definitions to put on this right now. So, I guess there was one right now, he's going boom, 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 and then that instantly, what do you think of? Maybe porn stars, maybe something. It's even this mysterious, do you have to do work at first to even define what the emotions are behind it? Or it's not just porn stars, or looking behind what's happening behind the scenes with that? We are used to talk about porn as something that is produced for arousing or to create arousal, but we haven't talked about porn as a kind of art or self-explanation or something to open yourself up to, or through what you can open yourself up to. And we have started to talk about porn from this angle only now, maybe more than we
because we are talking about feminist porn and ethical porn, fair trade porn, if you want to call it that, and the discussion is already out of hand. It was already out of hand before we could start a discussion, so it's really loaded with emotions, and for a person who is working with sexuality education and all kind of topics that come to sexuality, for me as well, to talk about porn is sometimes difficult with other experts.
Even with other experts?
Yes, even with other experts, because porn is bad, is often said. Not everybody, but often it's said that porn is bad. Porn is violent. Porn is making women smaller, men bigger. And I agree if we talk about mainstream porn, that you can get your hands on with 2 clicks. But as you said, we haven't talked about porn in a broader meaning. What is it that we are talking about? What kind of porn there is? How can it be ethical and sometimes even maybe beautiful? How to make porn more like erotics?
Okay, to that again. I mean, there's different parallels there with different addictions, because we've always had booze, so we're kind of comfortable as a society apparently with the idea that there's some booze you can have, and the government's made laws and that's okay and we can have that. But then if we talk about, say, marijuana, we haven't had that before, and there's probably the equal amounts, just no, all the weed is bad, oh, maybe some of the weed is all right. We can't seem to treat it like we treat alcohol, where we're like, a bit's okay. And even with that, we're like, actually, that's not okay, a whole bunch of it. But we've somehow come to terms with them. It seems like similar with porn, that there are ways of using it in a good way. There are forms of it that are nicer, but it's interesting that even at the expert level, is still going, nah.
Not only experts, feminists as well are not agreeing on porn or about porn. There are feminists who say that porn is bad because it's sexualizing women. Me personally, I say that I am a sexual human being, and if it is a way to express myself, and if it is my free choice, why not? Why to say that me as a woman, I am not this kind of sexual being who can express herself like that? Not that I am, but
sure, but you can possibly if you want to.
Yes, and feminists as well are not on the same page with porn, and experts as well, because the topics and the issue of porn is very much the issue of values.
Okay, yeah. Your personal values, and even if we say feminists don't agree on how to view pornography, like, well, okay, what do you mean by feminists? And really, like, all the feminists all around the world are supposed to agree on one thing? Like, of course, like any group of people, they're not going to agree, because at first you go like, whoa, yeah.
But there are different interest groups that are not agreeing, and it also shows how divided the topic is and how diverse the pornography topic is as well. And if we talk about using porn or watching porn, when does it get dangerous?
Right.
When does it get problematic? What is the limit of that, or where is the border of usual watching porn just for fun, or watching porn just with your partner, or to make your sexual life interesting, or you are just interested, and where is the border where it becomes a problem?
I think it's so deep, the education that has to go on, because we've been dealing with alcohol for years, thousands of years. And so there's some idea about, okay, a drink every night, maybe a glass of wine. We understand the difference between beer, wine, tequila, vodka shots, a cocktail. These all seem to have different places in our society that we've agreed where it's fit. A glass of white wine is fine. Maybe not to knock back 2 tequila shots when you get home. Could be the same amount of alcohol, but it has, we pursue it in a different way, and we have no such way of judging pornography, and that a little bit might be okay.
Because the problem of porn is not so old than the problem of alcohol. if there are problems with alcohol, and if a person does not use alcohol properly, we know it for a long time already, but the problem with porn is quite new.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we can get into the levels of it. So, yeah, because I'm that, like you, I guess. We remember before the internet and then after the internet. That we're this generation that knows, I think, quite intimately both of those things, and there won't be another generation like us. All the kids know it all. Grandma doesn't get it, for the most part. So I remember, the two ways that when I was a teenager that I would have seen porn, which was either when I got a modem and we did the dial-up sound, and then I connected to something, and then at first maybe it was just like something you might see in a Playboy. Like just a picture of a naked woman or something like that at first. The other way that we may have seen it was, we used to know that if we went on a certain day to the news agency, that we could hang out the back around where the bins were, and they'd throw out the magazines that hadn't been sold, and that we could dumpster dive through the bins and get a couple of magazines. So maybe, but then you had the problem of, where are we going to put the magazines? We got to hide this stash. Where is this stash? And there's no way I want to leave this in the house. Where it could possibly be found. So maybe there's a ripped out page with a folded up thing. And that's still looking at pornography, but it's clearly on a very different level to what we're looking at today. And I can't decide whether that was a better way of it, because it was less, and it wasn't in my face, and it wasn't interactive, and it wasn't 2 clicks away. Or is it just every generation seems to do more than the next? Am I just being an old man saying, back in my day, things were better?
It's like with the horror movies. Horror movies in 60s and 70s, if you look at them at this point right now, they are funny.
Yeah, okay.
They are not awful or horrifying. And you need more and more impulses. And the problem with porn is pretty much the same. Like porn stars or people who work in porn productions, they say that in the 70s, 80s, the porn was not so violent. The problem right now is that you need more and more and more, and it is getting more and more extreme. So the only problem is not about the numbing effect of pornography, but also the violence that is on the internet porn. Mostly it is on the internet.
Yeah.
Even ethical porn you can download on the internet.
Be like, who's got a DVD anymore? Like, well, I got a VHS.
Yes.
I mean, we did that when we were 17. We sat around, put a VHS in, my friends, and like, I kind of look back on those days and go, was it that bad? Yeah, fast forward, rewind. It wasn't that high quality. It was all a bit fuzzy. And now it's 4K and 2 clicks away on my high-speed internet.
Yes, and the problem is what is it doing to our minds? What is it doing to our understanding of relationships, understanding of emotions that are connected to sexuality, and how do young people, especially, view women and men? What is the part of a woman in a sexual act, and what is the part of a man? Who is woman? Is she an object or a subject? And what is she supposed to do? And sexuality scripts, they are quite the same. Cinema theater or kinoteater in Estonia, they have maybe 2 years ago, they had a show that was called No Fapping, ei tao, and I can see your face. But it was a community on the internet that Paavo got the idea of fasting from porn, and the spectacle was talking about it. So they opened the fasting from porn from quite new angle, and we haven't talked about it before that really in Estonia as well, about porn addiction. So we have to divide porn, ethical porn, misogynist porn, porn addiction, feminist porn, violent porn, rape porn, and so on and so on. And when we talk about child pornography, this is one thing that me personally I would not put among other things, because it's a criminal act.
Right.
We are not talking about pornography as such, but it is a criminal act, and we have to find another definition for that.
Yeah, that's something else. That was so. Even I've been to Japan a few times now over the last few years, and they have a different way that they have gender balance. They're a totally different society, totally different way I mean, they're kind of known for their manga cartoons and the explicitness of the anime and the cartoons. And it was something like child pornography wasn't like banned until like the late 70s or 80s, like super within living memory. And you're like, yeah, you see how that still permeates through the society. It takes that time for it to go through. But what about, okay, so you're saying, okay, the Kino Theater did this thing about, looking at the different types of porn, and I agree with all that. But is there, because when I started to investigate a little bit of, okay, there's communities out there that can help you with porn addiction, because for the first time ever, when I was in America in summer, I went to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I don't know, I don't know if I've struggled with alcohol more or less than anyone has in Estonia through the winter. Maybe, who knows, what is an alcoholic, right? But especially because I'm an English speaker, there was like no such meetings in Estonia for me to do. So I was in Atlanta visiting my friend. I looked up, I'm like, oh wow, there's all these meetings. So I went and just sat and I told my thing, and it was very interesting to not just see it from the movies and see what a group therapy session was like. And I liked it. I thought it was a really nice, positive thing. Where was I going with this? Right. So I was looking up stuff on the internet about porn addiction. And there's two things that I couldn't quite get separated. There was not looking at porn, but then there was the no FAP side of it, which I still don't quite comprehend. So what do you think? Let's say we've got a young man who realizes this porn ain't good. And they're not quite sure, but they think this is not good. And they think, I've got to get off porn. But then a lot of the messages if you start looking up this stuff on the internet, it's like, no porn, but no FAP. And I'm like, whoa, I only agreed to one of these things. That's a bit, and they're kind of presented as this thing together, like, that's a different thing. And I mean, do you think that if there's young men out there who are thinking, okay, I need to get off this, do I necessarily have to stop masturbating as well as stop looking at porn?
The question is, why are you doing it?
Okay.
I guess. I don't know. I don't want to know why you are doing it.
No.
But in
I'm good with that. It's all right, yeah. Why is it?
In general, what is the reason that we are masturbating? Masturbation is a normal thing. It's enjoying ourselves and getting to know our bodies and what do we like and what do we dislike. But it's not, I guess, it's not war against masturbation. It's war against numbness.
Sure.
If you are trying to get some kind of connection with yourself and you are trying to get it through fapping or trying to get harder impulses each time, and the outcome is the opposite, then it's kind of a numbing process, I guess.
I think so too. I wasn't down with. I mean, because the NoFap information was also very weird because maybe I didn't look enough of it, but none of it. I was like, what if you have a girlfriend? Which is a common problem that maybe young men are looking at porn or boyfriend. Yeah, absolutely. Instead of engaging with their partner, they're looking at this stuff. And I was like, well, why would I want to know FAP? I want to go and do that. But anyway, okay, I guess we're dealing with a certain level of young man that doesn't. But yeah, because I mean, the porn is this intense image that I'm flashing into my retina, essentially, so I don't have to think. Like you said, I guess it's a numbing.
And it's about filling a gap. Right. But the more you are trying to fill a gap, the larger the gap gets. So it's no win situation, I guess. I guess. Sure.
That we've got this gap that. Because here's where we start bringing it back around. We bring the thread back around to what we were talking about before. You can make a connection back to the online toxic communities that women especially face the backlash from. That is it just a bunch of dudes who have had their view warped because they watch too much porn, as maybe other things in society, and or I don't know, maybe they just look and go, internet is for boobs and for porn. And if I can't appreciate that there might actually be a human being down the internet.
But it's interesting. I haven't read the comments that are written about female comedians. Some of my friends or people I know are also getting to know the world of the comedian world and getting on stage. But are those comments more about their looks than comments about men? What are the comments about?
Right, I don't have a large sample space, and I was actually trying to deal with it. I mean, we have other comedians who are not women who also get negative comments sometimes because they have a particular style of their act. And I tried that sort of stuff. I try to frame like, well, if you've got let's say a weird act, well, then a lot of people won't like you, but the people that do like you will love you. And that's one area to look at. But yeah, and then we have had some incidences where women are getting negative feedback. So I was always, when I talk with the comedians, I try to not always frame it as a gender issue, but it's one very clear example of.
Yeah, but it's interesting. What are the comments about exactly? Right. When you're giving a comment about a guy or about a woman who is on stage?
One thing, I do a Friday afternoon live stream with a friend of mine, Sila Kadri Simmer, and just from observing the interactions that guys have with her, she's a very fierce lady as well. And it seems that men always want her to justify herself in some way. And for what it might be, what do you think gives you the right to be on the stage, on this stream? Tell me a joke. Prove to me you're funny. It's like, you were a random fuck on the internet. Why? But guys always feel like they need to, I don't know, it just seemed this need to justify seemed to be the common thread through the whole thing.
And it does not even, it's not even important who are you, what you are doing. For example, many of my friends are human rights activists or human rights professionals. And all the time they get negative comments online. They are women. They get comments about their looks, or you are so fat, what you are talking about, or look at yourself, or your hair is so dumb, and so on and so on. So people don't have anything deeper to comment than the looks, and it's quite interesting, but also quite awful.
Yeah. I have this. I've got this joke that I do that I don't know if you know. There's a friend of mine. His name is Alexander Popov, and he's a big dude. He's a big bouncer. A lot of people know him. He's a kind of bouncer for many years. Big dude, big Russian dude. And I was like, guys, okay, if you're a little confused about what you should say on the internet, he is my help. Just think, if you're about to write that to a woman, would you write that to Alexander Popov? Would you say you're stupid and fat? I don't think you would. You know, would you write that to a big burly, muscly guy on the internet? I don't think you would. So, you know, use that now. Maybe you know the person. Maybe then it's cool to write that, you know, but if you don't know them, would you still do that? Because we don't know as a society how to communicate online. Like, I'm impressed even that you want to engage people on Twitter. I'm like, this is what I think it's harder to detangle all of this when you've got a true straight up internet addiction, which is the other X factor in the room, which I don't think society is talking about either. The porn addiction, yes. The over-sexualization, I can load up my Instagram and see boobs anytime I want. But that we're also really just starting to talk about that we are fucking addicted to these things. That the Facebook app is, well, you can actually kind of, some of the research out there is really tracing it back to the IPO, the stock offer of Facebook. When Facebook was going to go public and they went, okay, well, we're going to go public. We need to have so many more users to get the stock price up. How do we do that? And they took, as much as I've read, they referenced a lot of the literature and research that like Las Vegas casinos use about getting little impulses, about just giving them enough of something, giving them the chime, the way that any slot machine lights up. It's straight up the same manipulation. And I think we haven't learned how to, like, we're not addressing this. Like, we got little addictive slot machines in our pocket. And then add that into, then a lot of the time the addictive slot machine
we are talking about when it comes to kids, but not adults.
Okay, how so? What do you feel is the difference there?
We talk about a lot, we talk about the addiction really a lot when we talk about kids, their addiction.
Right,
and how much time are they spending on smartphones and internet and not as much, we don't talk as much about adults. Or talk about our own examples.
Right, because every parent's talking about how much screen time, when did you give your child a phone? How much screen time do they get each day? And no doubt every parent, as it's a difficult job, I wouldn't know, but so I've come to observe, there's got to be some days where you're like, just fucking look at YouTube, I don't care, you know, I can't just, you know, and those moments, right, but...
And the lockdown and internet and screen time and porn is, again, one topic that is really interesting. Many people are talking about it more and more. Kids are home at this point right now, and parents think that they are safe. But if you have to work, you have to work from home office, or you have to work from the other place, but your kid is home, you are not maybe so much aware what the kid is doing on the internet, and the usage of porn is also getting higher among kids as well.
Do you think when you have children and you're trying to teach them about the dangers of the world, and then we've got the dangers of the internet, and then the dangers of pornography, do you have to have a blended approach that it's like, certainly is it a combination of, or what's the balance between, because there are some technological lockouts to a certain degree. Now, pretty sure most kids might be able to work out how to get around anything their parents can do, but there's some levels of that. And then there's some levels of just straight up education of, you know, what's that balance that's generally taught these days?
If I have a kid, I have 3 of them.
Okay.
4, if to consider a nuclear family. I guess this and that. Education is a very important thing, and awareness of what we see. Limits are also very important, but you cannot shut your kid off. You cannot go around and make a face like the kids don't live on an internet era. We cannot turn it back.
Yeah.
No way we can do that. This is why I am not really sure that shutting off the internet or taking away the smartphones or computers or tabs is a good idea. Education is important, but not only education as a formal education, but to be there for your kid. You have to be there.
Okay,
for children, so that they know that they can come to you and ask questions, or they know that they are safe when they are discovering the world, and they will want to discover everything. Of course, my son is 15 years old, soon he will be 16, and I'm almost the last person that he comes to ask different questions, but sometimes he does, and I think that the fact that he comes to me, more important than this fact is the fact that he knows that he can come to me, that I'm not judgmental or judging his behavior or his interest. He's 15, 16 years old kid. Of course he is interested in sexuality and sex, and of course he has outreached to porn, but for me it's very important to talk about what he sees. If he sees that it is not usual, that the gender norms that he sees there are not normal, that if he sees that a woman is an object and men, and very often there are a few men with one woman, very often, that it's not like the woman is an object and men are subjects in sexual act, but it is a consensual act. And the one thing that is a pain in my ass is that the consent topic is missing in porn. When you see the usual internet porn or mainstream porn, where is consent? Where is
whose consent?
From the parts who are in this pornographic or sexual act.
Okay.
Consent, as we see a man or three men and a woman, and suddenly something is starting, and it's getting quite.
Okay. Consent in the script, so to say, in the actual thing. Okay.
There is not consent in the script, and kids do not think with the analytical mind. Oh, okay, there should be a consent. Oh, a condom, the condom is missing, but it should be there. They are not thinking like that. They see and they adapt, and they think that, or they don't even think. It becomes like normal view of a sexual act, and everything that are missing there is everything that we have to talk about as well, and consent is one very, very important thing.
Right, because as an adult, I would look at that, and maybe let's even say as an adult who works in I work in the entertainment industry, not the adult entertainment industry, but the entertainment industry. So I would look back and go, okay, there's some appreciation. There's lights and there's a camera and there's a set, and maybe, who knows, maybe they've even got a manager, and there's probably been some sort of contract signed, and there's money being exchanged. I don't know how much, I don't know any of this, but I would go like, oh, that's the consent because I'm an adult and I understand this is a thing. But okay, a kid just sees it playing out. They don't know that.
When did she say that she wants that?
Right.
When did they ask? When did he ask, or when did she ask It depends, but usually we see a woman that is objectified and very much violence about it, spitting in face, gagging, hitting, pulling hair, and so on and so on. We don't talk about just the sexual act, we talk about big amount of violence also, and that is a really huge problem.
Yeah. There's also another, I don't want to say style of porn video that I saw a lot, which is, yes, so there's the overly aggressive style, which is there's many men possibly, or one man dominating or something and she's subservient to him. There was also very common styles that it's the woman is overly sexually aggressive and the man is the timid one and that she's the one, I want you, I'm coming onto you, she takes down the pants, like, and the guy almost just goes, whoa, geez, I didn't think this was going to happen. And that's also, I mean, that turns it around. She's the sexually aggressive one or the dominant one. Kind of flips it around because we don't often, I'm not saying it's any better, I'm trying to formulate my thoughts on this. Because we don't often think about consent for guys because we deal with men and women differently when it comes to those situations.
Because men always want sex.
Apparently.
This is a stereotype.
Right, yes.
And this is a very bad stereotype.
Yeah.
And this is also one problem that we talk about when we talk about porn.
Right, so you got these, and these, sexually aggressive women. And even then, even sometimes I think, okay, I watch something and I'm like, oh yeah, she's sexually quite forward and I love that idea. And first of all, that was giving me two negative ideas. One is I don't have to do much, which is not the real case with a human being. And secondly, anytime I did find a sexually aggressive person in real life, let's say I'm at a bar and, she's aggressively hitting on me, that was the worst thing ever. Like, just as you also wouldn't want a very aggressive man coming onto you, putting on the moves hard at the bar or something, I was like, no, I also don't want that. That's a turn off for me in the real life, but somehow the fantasy of it. And then you start to think like...
But fantasies are okay. It does not mean that we want everything that we fantasize about. Okay. And it also does not mean that we want it with anybody.
Okay.
Fantasies are not a crime. We can fantasize about anything. The question is when we try to make our fantasies real.
So how do we then educate children about
what?
That? Sorry?
About what?
Well, that there's some things in fantasy that could actually be all right, but there's a limit to fantasy. There's a limit to...
We talk about consent a lot, and we don't talk about consent only in frames of pornography. We talk about consent with parents as well. We educate parents also. And for example, on the playground, kids are playing, and one kid is overly cuddly and he wants to cuddle and hug another children, but there are kids that don't want that. What do we do then? Do we say to this other kid who does not want to be hugged that he or she has to accept the hug? Or do we say that to the other kid that you have to ask first from the other one? So the message of consent does not only come to terms when we talk about sex itself or about porn, but it comes to terms, or it comes on the picture much earlier. And it's all, everything is connected. It's not, sexuality education is not something divided from everything else. It's quite connected to other parts of life and other parts of upbringing.
That's a great example that, it's perfectly normal for a little kid to just, some kids are just huggy and affectionate and like
others are not.
And so others are not. And if you think about it, a child who is just a little bit affectionate, mostly we say, hey, do you think that's a... They'll go, oh, that's delightful. That's a nice thing, isn't it? A sweet little child. Right, but then there's going to be other kids who are just like, whoa. So there could be, and then maybe that child who's a little bit inward needs to be brought out of their shell a little bit, but maybe not in that way. Yeah, how do you... So how do you... I don't know. How do you even go about teaching kids such grey areas like that?
We don't have to teach them only with words. It's very much question about how are we giving them examples. For example, the same example with the hugging. Let's say we are around the table and there is a big birthday party of an aunt or an uncle or grandmother or grandfather, parents, whoever, it's not important. But when people come to the birthday or when they leave from the birthday, they also want to hug a kid maybe. And the kid does not want that. I don't want to. And if when grown-ups say that, no, be a polite kid. It's not,
hug grandma, go on.
Yes, go and hug auntie or grandma. And if we do not accept or accept limits and borders of one child ourselves, how can we say or how can we dream about him or her growing up as an adult who knows his borders or her borders and who will accept the borders of others as well. And if we as adults say that you have to let other people touch you when you don't want to, we tell them that if a grown-up wants to touch you, you have to let it.
Yeah, right.
And then we think about how to protect our kids from sexual violence. And these messages are much deeper than the words. And sexual education, sexual upbringing, or sexuality education, it cannot be only declared. It has to be lived. We as grown-ups and as adults have to accept kids as they are. We have to teach them how to be an adult in harmony with him or herself, but also we have to accept their limits and understand that they are people. They're really people. They're not little puppets that will be people when they will be grown-ups. They are people as they come out from us, and that is a difficult thing in Estonia, I guess.
Yeah, such a good example like so common, the idea of the little kid who doesn't want to hug grandma. Grandma looks old and wrinkly and she probably smells a little bit, and it's so.
Or maybe today I don't want to. Maybe I'm really off. Maybe I'm upset, and who knows what else reasons there are. But there are reasons.
Okay, some education about who's hugging you, who is this person, what is the context of the environment. Okay, grandma, when she's leaving after the birthday, maybe not so bad with some education, but the weird guy or the strange half uncle or something who's been hanging out and they're alone, not so good either. Right, so what you're saying is we have to educate our children. Oh my God, we've got to do real parenting here?
Yeah.
But that's what the internet was for.
Exactly.
That's why we invented this thing, wasn't it? Stick them in front, learn everything we need to.
Of course. But not only kids, yes, parents need help as well. And even when we talk about sexual behavior in Estonia, I'm not so worried about teenagers as I am worried about grown-ups in 30s plus.
How so? Why? What do you mean by that?
The knowledge that people have. We talked about sexuality education in our age. Parents in my age usually don't have any sexuality education, and it does not only mean that they don't know how to educate their kids, but it means that they don't use condom. in occasional relationships. But kids do it more than grown-ups. Grown-ups are so stupid in that area sometimes. And when they are asked, why don't they do that? The reasons are different. Some people say that I'm on hormonal pills, I don't have to. Some say that this person that I had an occasional sexual intercourse with, he or she was well dressed and accepted member of society, like STDs ask. No, they don't ask. So kids in teenagers are and in early 20s are much cleverer in that area than people who are 30 plus years old.
Which has got to be, I mean, at least in Estonia, the children at that level are something. I mean, there's sometimes you can look at Estonia, I agree, and go like, a little bit behind on some things, but then again, there's got to be so many other cultures that Estonia is ahead of. Maybe looking very broadly around the world and different religions and so forth, who don't even have that.
And right now, the one very painful question is who is giving sexuality education in Estonia at this point, because we are seeing the uprisal of esoterical world and all the tantra activists and people who are talking about lingam and yoni and so on. And it is it's not the best situation when sexuality education is given by someone who, for example, says that yes, you have to use condoms, but don't use lubricants, use coconut oil, for example. And I'm just starting to bang my head against the wall.
Okay.
Yeah,
we could get some coconut milk or something from open the can. And,
yes, of course, because they don't tell people that every kind of lubricant that is oil-based can harm latex condoms, for example.
Okay, yeah.
And this is only sexuality education only halfway.
Yeah, okay.
And sometimes it's even more damaging.
Sure, because you think you're getting an education. You think that you're learning something.
You're safe and you know.
Yeah. Huh. Have you, I'm interested, have you ever listened to some of the podcasts that are out there, like Tusi Soyad or Dissident by Silla and Mariana?
A little bit, not much, because of my ADHD, my attention is getting a bit everywhere.
Well, you're doing great so far right now.
No, right now I'm talking, and you're talking. But if I have to listen for an hour or so, then I do it sometimes. I have to stop and then go on again. I have listened some of them. Dissident more than Tusi Soyad.
Sure, yeah. It is very interesting knowing, I mean, all four of them who do that, and I mean, and I don't think they're not professing to be sexual health experts. Yeah. They're not professing to have all of these answers.
Exactly.
But the level that people write in and the questions, you can very clearly see there's some lack of not only sexual education, but lack of someone they can relate to saying it, which may be very important for kids. That okay, you got Silla and Mariana, they're two cool chicks who are out there kicking ass in the world, and they're talking about it, and it's not the old teacher, and maybe even the teacher's young, but they're still the teacher, and you've got this separate kind of pop culture thing,
influencers and so on.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad they're around to be something for us. God, we've talked to so many things today. I'm trying to think of a few things before we wrap it up. I mean, we've spoken a lot about how porn is affecting young men and how it's getting to them, and it hits, I know from my own experience, it hits these centers. There's some DNA shit in there where it's going, look, and without the control, without the framework, you can look at a lot. But as I've been reading up in the whole thing, I mean, there's young women. Seems to be quite a lot of young women who are looking at pornography and have some of the same symptoms, let's say, that I started at a certain age, I look at more, now I can only get off to something like that. I don't know, is there a difference between pornography addiction in young men and young women? Is there some?
The amount of the addiction is different. More young men than young women are addicted to pornography. But I guess that what it is doing in general is also different. There is a specific social problem, if you can put it that way, when young women come to date. For example, it's a first date or a second date, let's say it's a first date, and they come to the date as if they go to the scenery of a porn set, if you know what I mean. As if they are expecting to be attractive specifically this way. And again, gender norm, gender stereotypes, acknowledging your own sexuality, that you have to be agent of your own sexuality. You have to own your own sexuality. Your sexuality does not belong to the audience or the other people, and it makes young women, again, it puts them in a harmful position again. But if we talk about porn addiction, then of course we cannot say that women or young women are not affected at all. I guess the emotional numbness or emptiness, so this gap is there for women as well, for young women.
Which might be, I mean, okay, it's interesting when you framed it like that, this emotional gap, because I like through this talk, I've kept bringing it back to, I think it's hugely intertwined with our internet addiction, the porn addiction, that we're wired to want the clicks or the likes, we're wired for the next notification that comes up, and that when that's intermixed with pornography, that's a really difficult mix. And you sort of said about, it's a numbness we have, or a void that we have, which is the next common thing that I think we're all getting. Yeah, we have an addiction, and what is that producing in us? A numbness and a void, because we're not connecting, we're not hanging out in person, we're not having real meaningful time with one another as much as we did before. There's a lot more casual conversations and casual things, and people go, well, then all of a sudden you have this porn goes, whoa, that filled the gap. Whoa. Yeah, okay, so before we wrap up, again, coming back to young women, because I noticed when I stopped looking at pornography, so it makes, to me, it made some logical sense that at first my brain still wants a bit of it. It had a thing that it was addicted to, and at first it's like, come on, man, go find, and then you start, and I didn't want to objectify women in real life, but I wanted to be more attracted to women in real life, to not be attracted to the imagery. But then at the same time, because this is lockdown time, I've been watching a lot more and learning a lot more about live streaming. And I've noticed that, okay, there's a lot of people that play games, and that's cool. And then I saw there were some chicks that play games, and I thought, that's pretty cool too. And there's some chicks that play games, there's some chicks that do that, and there are some chicks that play games and they're doing good at it, they're genuinely good at it, but then the top of the shirt is unbuttoned, just here, like not a lot, not showing anything but clearly she's sitting there and we're watching that. And there are some live streamers that it's almost like their own reality show. They just sit there and they have 1,000 viewers. Again, I don't know if they're all guys. And they're just maybe talking to the live chat. Sometimes they're just making dinner, and there's like 1,000 people watching them make dinner. And of course she turns around, you can see her ass, and that's no doubt exciting. And then there's another one where they play one of these games like Just Dance or something, where you've got to do the movements of the dance. And and I was like, well, what's the difference between that and a stripper? Like, you're dancing, it's the video game. We're all like, yeah, but even let's say she's a gamer, but she knows that if I just unbutton a few there. Marketing, right? Yeah. Or is that something that's been happening? I don't really let them go. It was very interesting for me, because then I was like, all of a sudden this is where I was going with this. All of a sudden I was like, well, if I can't see boobs on the porn, I'll watch a few live streams and see some boobs there. And that wasn't that interesting for me in the end, but it almost seemed the live streams were different, because my adult brain seemed to understand that porn was a make-believe scenario, even though I know it's getting implanted in. But when I was watching a live streamer, they're being themselves. There's not acting. Now they're not doing anything sexual really, but they're interacting with their audience. They're forming these bonds, because as part of a streamer, you talk back to your people. They give you a donation, you talk back to them. It's this interactive thing. But I can only imagine a whole bunch of guys at home donating a bit of money, getting an interaction with this streamer, seeing her cleavage. She's a pretty girl. Oh, and she plays the game really well too, so I can fool myself into thinking. And their porn addiction was just like, yeah. But the streamer addiction was a whole different beast, because they were getting you emotionally hooked in. And I have a feeling this is a whole new thing that we also haven't dealt with in society.
It's very interesting. I haven't really thought about it at all.
Okay, streamer addiction. Because then I wasn't really into like listening to them, and I guess because I just quit porn, or I don't want to say like, oh, I've quit it like some big miraculous thing, whatever, but or thinking about these topics and then realizing, oh wait, if I engage with her, like, no, I don't want to form this kind of bond, but thousands of dudes seem to want to do that. And I was like, is this now, because this is the next rabbit hole, because the next rabbit hole is, who are these guys out there who don't like women, the incels?
Exactly.
You know, that's the next whole deep rabbit, which I'm not sure I'm qualified to talk about and to know about that, who don't like women, who don't want to have sex, who feel that all women...
really dark area, and dangerous one as well.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know, I didn't really have a question about that. I guess I was just formulating, like, when I guess our society's become more sexualized, and I don't mean to criticize these young women doing this. You know, this is also something that's been since the end of time. That can a woman use her sexuality to get one up on a stupid guy? Quite possibly, but now they're doing it at scale.
Yeah, and sometimes I can express my sexuality even not directly directing it to somebody, but just me feeling good about myself. Also, usually we think about the audience that is somewhere, but not all the time, and not always.
Yeah, it's okay. It's interesting, these boundaries, these new things that we're all coming up with, and the things are moving so fast, we don't have time to come up with social standards, because the technology is moving on, but we're still monkeys, and the monkey brain is not keeping up with the new ways that we're finding to flash images at us.
Of course.
All right, let's. We've been talking for quite some time now. So.
Yes, my barking clock is ticking.
Oh yes,
no,
of
that's
course.
okay.
Yeah, I got to do that. So okay, so the next, so for the foreseeable future, it's webinars for you with your work, is it?
Yes, tomorrow, on Wednesday, I'm taking off from webinars, but Thursday and Friday, and next week, and then some little lessons with kids. It's not the half day; it's only 1 hour and a half. And then That's it.
That's it. Okay.
For this year, we don't know how it will go on in autumn, in September, in October. But I don't want to think so much ahead because it's quite alarming if we have to go on this way for a long time. One thing is that when government gives a permission to do all kind of work, but the other thing is the fear that people have. In the back of your head. We don't want to gather in one room with 30 people we don't know, for example.
That is true. Because even, I mean, walking around Tartu yesterday, you might think people don't give a shit anymore. It was sunny and everyone was outside enjoying a drink, but okay, there's many more people that aren't. I mean, for us at Company Estonia, we've got different levels. So for us, you know, maybe we can have a small gathering soon. Maybe that gathering can be on a terrace and it's in the outside and all that. But you know, in autumn, we've got to get back to our big tours if we want to. That's basically how we make our money, is doing the bigger shows at Vanamoina or wherever in Tartu, in Pärnu at the Endla Theatre or something like that. We need to have a big room to sell enough tickets to make enough money. And will they let us do that by the time? Will people want to? We've moved most of our shows into September. September, that tour that was supposed to be in spring, we moved Sanda's tour out to September. And I would say not that many cancellations. Like enough that you could, I mean, appreciate some people just don't know what they're doing in September, right? Like not as many as you might think. So that's given me some idea that people still want to. Of course
they want to and they need it. Even with fear, you cannot live forever. In between these walls where you live every day, you have to have your ordinary life back sooner or later. I think it's humane.
Kristina, thank you very much for our conversation today. I appreciate your time. Good. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.